Hare Krishna, Jahnava. This is Hemalata, and Sebastian is here too. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good. Sebastian is coming. He's preparing some tea because of the delay. We took the time to prepare some
Hare
tea.
Krishna. How are you?
Good.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. It must be winter there.
Yes, it is.
Winter there, summer here. Let's see what everyone else is saying. Alone, with my husband, awesome. On my own, we are together. Okay, cool. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I guess there's about like 15 or so folks or couples or individuals signing in. Should we wait more, Anurana, or just start? I can't hear you anymore.
Sorry, I think we can start now that we share the links and yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, and then someone wrote, I would wait. Hare Krishna, I'm alone, husband is busy. Kamaniya. She wrote, I would wait. Okay, how long do you think we should wait, Kamaniya? Because we don't want to keep everybody else waiting too long, so it is a tricky thing. Anirana, how many more people do you think we should expect realistically?
I think like 40 people, and we are now 26.
And you had 40 signed up.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. Ramadana, there was an issue with the link. Many more want to join but have the wrong link. Yes, it has been broadcast. Right, Anuradha? Have you broadcast it?
Yeah, it has been. It's broadcast in Mahatma Prabhu's site and on the WhatsApp groups. But also, if you can share it in another groups or with people that you know that they are waiting, you can share it, please.
If all of you can share it with your people who you know might have been interested, that would help. And I'm sorry we're getting started so late. Apologize. There was just some issues with getting signed in and who was hosting it and accounts and passwords and all that stuff.
Hare Krishna, my obeisances.
I
had the wrong link also, and I was checking in the official page of Guru Maharaj, and I was trying, and because it says there the host will start the class, and it says your name, like His Grace is gonna start the meeting. So I was waiting, waiting for the meeting start, and yeah, so I took longer to figure out, and many people is the case.
How did you figure it out? Thank you, Kamania. Go ahead. Sorry.
I saw messages that Anuradha sent to a WhatsApp group.
Okay. Awesome. So you were on the last one we did. Okay. It's the same topic, you know.
I need to hear it one and again and again and again. I get it. So
the Facebook invite title is updated, then people will get a notification. So Kamini is writing, if the Facebook invite title is updated, then people will get a notification. No problem, Mataji, it's worth the wait. Okay, so can someone update it?
Yeah, I can go.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's worth the wait. Marriage is not so easy. I like that. Cute. All right, we'll wait till 10:30. How about that?
And yeah, it's 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. Well, it's 6 minutes according to my
Okay.
computer and my phone. Okay, so what's her name's having a hard time getting on. Can you send the link? I mean, I already sent it to her, but I'll send it again. To Krishna Karshini.
Oh, yes.
Does she have the link?
She checked the. She's in the WhatsApp group. She might maybe see
Okay.
it, but I can send it to her.
I just sent it. It's okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna, just regarding my suggestion to update the Facebook event title, it should just be at the beginning of the title, because otherwise people on smartphones won't see.
Right. Did you get that, Anuradha?
Yes, I sent a message to Radha Priya. She's doing it now. Thank you, Kamanija.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Jahnava Prabhu. It's so worth the wait.
What's that?
It's very much worth the wait. We're very grateful to you.
Aw, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm grateful that you're here.
Oh, of course. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting eagerly since your husband first mentioned this in class.
Wow.
He was good. Okay, I'm going to get back on my phone to let people know.
Go for it. Thank you. See you soon. Yeah, it looks like more people are coming now.
Yeah, 33.
Okay, good.
Almost so.
All right, we'll wait 4 more minutes.
Okay.
I had posted this in the Sadhi Sangha group also. I don't know if you know that group. So I'm just letting people know there, and hopefully they'll see that.
Thank you.
Please do this again.
I will, for sure. Okay, we're going to start very soon. For those of you wondering what's happening, we started late. We had some technical issues. We had to, as you know, create a new link. So we're just running a little behind. And we're really, really sorry about that. Hopefully you'll all be able to stay till the end. Okay, we're going to start any minute now. Hi, Kishori.
It doesn't seem to have been updated.
Oh, it wasn't updated. Do you want to, can you do that, or?
I'm not an admin for Prabhu's page.
Anuradha, you know to do that, please. So it's 9:30 more or less. Does everyone think we should start? I don't want to keep everybody waiting much longer. I know, Kamania, you want to wait, right? Let's take a vote. Who
I'm
said-
just seeing on the Sadhi Sangha page more people were asking what's happening, and I'm just posting as I see it.
Okay.
Yes, take a vote. Don't.
Yeah, well, I just don't want to be disrespectful to the people already sitting here waiting. You could just put in the chat if you're okay waiting a little longer or you'd like to get started.
We could just do one round together while we're waiting.
We could. That's 41. I would like to get started. Don't mind waiting. Start, please. Yeah, I think we're going to start for most people to benefit. We could start. Let's start. Okay, we're going to start. Even though, you know, people have more time than usual still, they do have a life. So I think we'll get started. All right. So Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, joining me anyway. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the 4 behaviors that destroy a marriage, and then I'm going to tell you the antidotes for all of them. And this is really for anybody, from a person who's not married yet to a newlywed to somebody who has been married for a long time, and every type of scenario in between, because we can always improve our relationships. And there are keys, you know, there are tools and skills that very few people just automatically know. So unless generally we're taught these skills, even though many of them are common sense, but unless we're taught them and unless we practice them, we don't generally know them. And the thing is, even though they're common sense and practical and hopefully simple, when we can add them and apply them to our relationships, the relationship gets so much better and we avoid so many potential problems. So it's the kind of thing that it's worth investing in. Relationships are worth investing in. And I'm just going to get started. So many little things to say, but it's all promotional material. I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to say that I'm a trained and certified life coach and marriage counselor. And I trained with the Gottman Institute, which is a very renowned institute. Dr. John Gottman and Dr. Julie Gottman are renowned therapists. And it's really like the best system, I think, you know, that I've ever seen. And it's very adaptable to Krishna consciousness. So I'm just going to get right into it. Okay, so there's 4 behaviors. Now, Prabhupada says lots of things about a Krishna conscious marriage, and we're going to just focus on a couple of things which are inspiring and supportive of the ashram. And I think what he really wanted his devotees to be is happy in their marriage. So I'm going to just mention a couple of quotes. So here's one, which is a Chanakya shloka. So it's not from Prabhupada, but he quotes it. So he says, "It is said that if a husband and wife are always satisfied with one another, then the goddess of fortune automatically comes. In other words, where there is no disagreement between husband and wife, all material opulence is present and good children are born." Then I have one more, and this is directly from Prabhupada, and this is in the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's part of a purport. "Reciprocation of service and love between husband and wife is the ideal of a householder's life." So that is what Prabhupada established. That's what he expected and what he wanted, was that husband and wife could be like a team and work together to serve Krishna and serve each other in the process. So the difference between a good marriage and a bad marriage is that good marriages are based between emotionally intelligent people. They have what we call an emotionally intelligent marriage. So there's a few things that make an emotionally intelligent marriage. One is that they keep negative thoughts and feelings about each other from overwhelming the positive ones. So they focus on the positive. They'll always be negative because we're all flawed individuals. And when we live with someone, we tend to see the faults, but they don't focus on the faults. They focus on the positive ones. Also, intelligent marriages, the couples are supportive and helpful. They go out of their way to be supportive and helpful, not the opposite. They don't act out of motives to be, mean, or they're not acting out of resentment, or they're just trying to get back at one another in spite or things like that. They're operating from a higher frequency. Also, they create a climate of respect and understanding. So respect is everything. It's got to start. That's the foundation, respect and understanding. If that is there, then everything works well. And finally, they think of we and not me. So Dr. John Gottman, who, as I mentioned, is the founder of the Gottman Institute, and he's the author of over 100 books. He started something called the Love Lab in the 1960s. So he's a contemporary of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And he was a kind of a genius in math. Actually, he started out as a mathematician. He didn't have anything to do with psychology or marriage or anything like that. But he was really sick of math and kind of just thinking it wasn't as fun as learning about people and studying why they do what they do, and particularly in marriage. And what he did was he combined his math skills, his genius math skills, with trying to understand what makes marriages work and what makes them disintegrate. Because at that point in time, there was very little research done on what it is that can make a marriage succeed and what it is that can make a marriage fail. So he got all these different degrees in psychology and all the background that you would need to learn about relationships. And then he set up what he called the Love Lab. And he had couples come in, over 3,000 couples, and he had them come in. They spent a weekend there. And he made it like an apartment. He made it really comfortable and cozy. And there was a beautiful bay window that overlooked a beautiful river with boats going by. And they brought all their stuff from home, their games, their newspapers, their food, their knitting, or whatever they do. And he just wanted them to hang out. And actually, the Dr. John Gottman and his whole team could see through a window what was going on. They were observing. There were cameras bolted to the walls, and even the couple was wearing some equipment that measured their heart rate, their pulse, and when they went to the bathroom to urinate, they would check the urine to check stress hormones. So he said, like in the beginning, the first few hours, the people were feeling a little uncomfortable, but after a while, they just relaxed. And they would even observe their facial expressions to see what was going on very deep inside. The face is the window to the mind. So anyway, over the course of a year and the studying of all kinds of couples, people who were brand new to marriage and been married for a long, long time and everything in between, like I mentioned, they were able to come up with basically 7 principles, which I'm not going to get into today, but I'll give you the main points to help you with your relationship. 7 principles that make a marriage work. And he could predict with 91% accuracy within the first 15 minutes of studying a couple and seeing them interact, whether they would succeed or fail. And he met with all of those couples 4 years later. And as I mentioned, 91% of his predictions were correct. He spent 4 decades of clinical study. So in addition to that year of the Love Lab, he spent 39 more years studying what makes marriages succeed and fail. So I think especially sometimes devotees, they might not appreciate the importance of a marriage, or the importance of saving a marriage, or the importance of having a good marriage. So too often a good marriage is taken for granted rather than given the nurturing and respect it deserves and desperately needs. And one of the saddest reasons a marriage dies is that neither person recognizes its value until it's too late. And some people think that getting divorced or sort of languishing in an unhappy marriage is not a big deal. I think devotees may fall in that spectrum. But there's a lot of evidence documenting how harmful both divorce and unhappy relationships can be for all. So bad marriages negatively impact our physical health. The studies show that people who have bad marriages have weakened immune systems, and they're 35% more likely to become ill with all different kinds of illnesses, especially viruses like colds and flu. People with bad marriages have a shortened lifespan of between 4 and 8 years when compared to couples in good marriages. And not surprisingly, people who have bad marriages manifest more feelings of depression and different types of negative feelings. So the research showed that 80% of divorced couples said that their relationship fell apart because they grew apart and lost a sense of closeness. And as individuals, they did not feel loved and appreciated. So you might be thinking that, argumenting in a marriage, getting in a fight or an argument is a bad thing. But the interesting thing is that arguments do not necessarily predict divorce. What predicts the divorce is how the couples argue. So dysfunctional arguments lead to negativity and distrust, but healthy arguments, and that's what we're going to talk about, lead to understanding and closeness. And Dr. Gottman coined this phrase, the masters of relationships and the disasters of relationships. So we want to become masters and not become disasters. So I'm going to start now by explaining the 4 behaviors that can ruin a marriage, which is what this little seminar is about. And by the way, I'll take questions at the end, and I might even break it up as we're going. Let's see, because I want to give people examples of how they might be experiencing it and giving them opportunities to sort of turn things around once I show you the behaviors. So the first behavior is criticism or criticizing. Now, there is a big difference between complaining and criticizing. We all complain, right? Like, I wish we could do that, or I wish, we could make this better. I wish, or why can't we this or that? The difference is that complaining focuses on a behavior or an event instead of the character of a person. And complaints are sensitive, so they don't attack the person. They have kind of what we would say a gentle startup. And what we want to do is replace criticism with complaining, and I'll elaborate. Criticism focuses on a partner's character or personality and the flaws rather than, the good parts. It implies that there is something wrong with the person, and it often includes blame and name calling, even sometimes character assassination. I'm going to give examples. And criticism uses harsh startups, put downs, attacks. Common forms of criticism are you always, you never. They're very big black and white blanket statements. And you'll always turn a complaint into a criticism by ending with something like, what's wrong with you? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of criticism. So these are just some random examples I came up with. They're not particularly profound or anything, but they're just kind of based on real average life. So here's a criticism. So this is a wife talking to her husband. It's another Saturday morning, and once again, I am picking up after you during my free time. We're having guests tonight, and I can't even get you to help me. I'm so sick of you being lazy. Okay, that would be a criticism, right? That's not very nice to say. Here's another one. So this is, let's say, so a wife is at home. Let's say she's the homemaker, and then the husband has been out at work all day. So he wants to come home to like a nice situation. So he comes home and he says, "Thanks for not having dinner ready on time again. I work hard all day for us, and this is what I come home to." So I'll give you one more. So this is, let's say, a couple are at home, and the guy's like, he never puts the dishes away. So the wife says, "You never wash your cup and put it away, and I always have to do it. I'm so sick of it. You're just so inconsiderate." Okay, so those are my examples. So here I'm going to give you the antidotes to criticism, and then I'll show how you could turn those verbal criticisms into something much better. So 96% of the time, how a conversation goes in the first 3 minutes predicts how it will end. So if it starts harshly, it is pretty much doomed to fail, pretty much, unless you have enlightened people who know these systems, who know how to turn around, which is what my husband and I are doing all the time. It's not that we don't make these mistakes, but we know how to turn it around, how to make a repair, how to catch each other before it goes down a rabbit hole. So that's the idea, is like, if you start out criticizing your partner, they're just going to get back at you in another way, which is the next behavior. And then it's just going to escalate into this terrible conversation when all you really wanted to do was get a need met. So we say for every complaint is a longing. And when somebody can tune into that complaint, for every criticism, there is a longing. And when you can tune into what that criticism is and turn it into a complaint, you can get the longing met. It's a recipe for something to actually change and get better. So the way we turn a criticism into an anecdote is something we call a gentle startup. And what that means is you say what the situation is, you say how it makes you feel, and then you explain what you would like. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples. So I'm going back to those first examples, the Saturday morning, and I have to clean up, and we're having guests tonight, and I always have to clean your stuff up. So here was the criticism. It's another Saturday morning, and once again, I am picking up after you during my free time. We are having a program tonight, and the house needs to be cleaned. So this is the way it could be done. Can you please fold your clothes and put them away so I have time, or so we have time to do what we need to do to greet our guests warmly? Which one sounds better? The second one, of course. So if a person heard, they say, "Yeah, I can put my stuff away." Or if they can't, they'll explain why. And then you're open to a dialogue. But you're not picking on the person. You're not calling them sloppy or lazy. I don't think sloppy was in there, but it should have been. You're just saying the situation, how it makes you feel, and what needs to be done. And you're asking respectfully. So here's the same one with the cup in the dishes. Please wash your cup and put it away when you are finished. Right, versus the "you're too lazy, I always have to pick up for you." So just say, "Can you please put your cup away? I've already put the dishes away. Would you mind and put yours away when you're finished? I don't have time to put it away. I'm busy. I have to go do this." Okay, so thanks for not having dinner ready on time. I work hard all day and this is what I come home to. Versus when I get home after a long day at work and prasadam isn't ready, I feel hungry and I'm frustrated. It would mean a lot to me if it could be ready on time so we can have a nice meal together and enjoy each other's company. So that's usually how I like to do my gentle startups. You know, I try and make it warm and friendly and inviting, and I try and express some kind of gentleness and just humility, you know, and vulnerability. Sometimes we think if we're vulnerable, we're going to get smacked back, but usually when we're vulnerable, it makes the other person way more sympathetic to our request. So again, a gentle startup has 3 parts to it. The situation, not the person. So it's always better to say I and not you. If you start saying you, it's probably mean you're criticizing. But if you focus more on I, how it makes you feel, what the situation is, and what you would like, a respectful request, most of the time, it really, really works. And when criticism is prevalent in the relationship, it paves the way for all of the other behaviors that destroy a marriage. So go into those. See, I'm looking at my notes and I can't see all of you at the same time, which is really frustrating, but I can't seem to do that. So I'm not actually seeing everybody. So let me just check in with everybody. You can nod or put things in the message here. Do you want me to go on, or are there burning questions?
There is a question in the chat.
Okay.
From Vindavani.
What if then we are met with the response, don't tell me what to do? So that's a good one. So what happens if someone says like that, then they're defending themselves. And probably you're not saying it as sweetly and gently as you can. Usually when you say things kindly, see, you're not telling them what to do, you're asking them. There's a difference between telling and asking. So for instance, you know, I'm asking you to please put the dishes away because I've already done them and now I've run out of time. Can you please do it? Or can you please have dinner on time because I'm really hungry and tired? Or can you please make sure? So it's a request. So if they say to you, don't tell me what to do, then you would say, I'm not telling you, I'm asking you. Okay? All right, I'm going to go on. So the next behavior is contempt. And contempt is like criticism on steroids. Contempt is like really bad character assassination. And it's when you feel, or someone feels, a superiority complex over that person. Like they're smarter, they know more, they're better at this, you know, they're just all around a more superior person. It's being disrespectful and insulting towards our partner. And, you know, some of you might be thinking, oh, I would never do that, you know, but we do it all the time. Well, not all the time. We sometimes do it. I mean, Dr. Gottman, in his research, he found that contempt comes later. It's not in the beginning of marriages. It's later down the road. So, you know, many of you in new marriages or not even in a marriage yet, it might sound like, what? And it is what for you right now. But later, especially if the relationship isn't going well, then contempt just becomes a part of the ethos. And contempt was the biggest predictor of divorce, actually, of all the 4 behaviors. Most people cannot tolerate contempt for very long. So it's being disrespectful and insulting. It's putting your partner down, maybe using names like, you know, you're so dumb, or you're so stupid, or, you know, being hostile, using humor in a degrading way, using a lot of sarcasm and cynicism. Sometimes Contempt means you roll your eyes, or you mock them in some way, like, no, 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 no. You know, they say something and then you imitate them in a rude way. And usually contempt is fueled by long simmering negative thoughts about your partner, hence why it comes later in the marriage. So remember what I said in the beginning, how one of the things that smart, emotionally intelligent couples do is they always focus on the positive and they don't let the negative become prominent. But when the negative becomes prominent, that's the segue that's the foundation for contempt. And usually it's there, but you don't know what to do with it. So it's there, and then it starts getting bigger and bigger, and then it explodes like a volcano. Okay, so the antidote to contempt is to create a culture of appreciation and respect. Now, if there is contempt in your relationship, what you're going to have to do is hit the reset button to create a culture of appreciation. We call it the reinvigorate button or the reset button. And what you need to do is scan your partner, scan the relationship for qualities and actions that you appreciate in them, and let them know that you've observed them and you're grateful for them. You know, it's one thing to notice it, like, yeah, okay, he's not that bad. He did do that. Yeah, okay. But it takes it to a whole nother level when you let them know that you appreciate it. It immediately changes the culture in the relationship. And also maintaining a sense of respect towards your partner, and to have that fundamental belief that your spouse is worthy of respect and honor. So setting that button, reinvigorate, reset button, creating a culture of appreciation and letting them know what you appreciate, verbally express it. Okay, so there's no burning questions. I'm going to go on. What if then we are met with the response? Okay, yeah. Okay, so I think I'll go on. So just to say that this is like a brief introduction to, good relationships. I work with clients on a steady basis, and I work with them in detail with this and with many, many other aspects of the 7 principles of making a marriage work. So this is just like an hors d'oeuvre. So if you're interested in doing premarital counseling or marital counseling, I can give you the full course meal. It can make it very appetizing and delicious, and you can learn a lot. And you can contact me privately. I work with I work with all devotees, not lots of devotees. I have a few non-devotee clients, but most of mine are devotees. And I'll work with you. I do like sliding scale fees, so I'm very, very accommodating. And I just love, love, love helping devotees have really beautiful marriages. So I just wanted to put that in there because I was supposed to say it in the beginning and I didn't. Okay. So the third behavior is defensiveness. And defensiveness is an attempt to protect oneself, to defend one's innocence, and to ward off a perceived attack. And like Vrindavani said in the comment, she said, well, what if someone says, don't tell me what to do? That would be a perfectly normal response to somebody who is criticizing you, right? So when we criticize, when we have a need or a longing, but it comes couched in the form of a criticism, don't expect them to respond by saying, oh yeah, okay, sure, I'll do that. No, you can expect, don't tell me what to do, or worse, because it's a natural human response to defend when you feel that you're being attacked. My husband and I have been working on this a lot because, like I said, we know all these skills. So I can stop myself most of the time, and he can stop himself, or we can stop each other and then like laugh about it. And if I do say something in a critical way, I catch myself and I say, excuse me, I would like to rewind that. I would like to just, inhale all of those words I said, and can you give me another chance to say that in another way? And that's always something that we can do, is make an early attempt to repair what we've just done. So if you find yourself, the criticism just comes right out and you realize, oh, then just say, excuse me, I apologize for that. Can you give me another chance to reword that? So defensiveness really does come from when one feels they're being attacked. And then what they do is they attack, don't tell me what to do. And then that person will also feel attacked. So then they might say, I'm not telling you what to do. And then they, yes, you are. And then you get into this big fight, and it had nothing to do with the original topic that you actually had brought up, or they had brought up, right? So the molehill becomes a mountain. You find yourself spiraling down. The conversation escalates into something completely different than what you intended it to be. So when we're defensive, we feel unjustly accused. We make excuses and play innocent victim so that our partner will back off. So even if we get accused of something we've done, right? Even if the attacking, you could say, is justified, but because the way we are wired as humans, we don't like that. We can't receive that. So we just defend and make excuses, and then flip it back on the other person. So defensiveness, like I've been saying, it escalates the conflict. And it is almost never successful, because our excuses tell our partner that we don't take their concerns seriously, and that we won't take responsibility for our mistakes. Okay, let me see. Sorry, what was the second one? Okay, well, I'm going to review it. The second one, what? The second is, we're on that. Oh, you mean the second what? So, Bhakti Awa. Anyway, we'll go back to that. I'm going to review everything.
Mataji.
Yeah.
The second, so the first was a criticism. The second was contempt.
Yes, that's correct.
And then the third is defensiveness.
Yes, correct. And we're on that right now. We're talking about defensiveness right now. Thank you. Okay, so go back to my notes. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples of defensiveness. Stop picking on me. Nothing I do is good enough for you. You do it too. Stop blaming me for not doing it. You could have done it. I don't do that. It's not my fault. I'm sure a few of those must ring a bell. And I will say, we don't just do this with our spouses. We do this with our children, and we do it with our parents too. You know, we do in the workplace too. So these skills are really useful for all relationships, but especially they tend to erode a marriage. So the antidote for defensiveness is to take responsibility. So, for example, you're right, I forgot to do it. I'm sorry. I'll do it now. Or what would you like me to do now? You know, you're right, I'm sorry, I forgot. What would you like me to do? So never try to defend yourself unless you're absolutely innocent or there was a misunderstanding about what you were supposed to do. But even then, you can do it nicely. Now, you might be thinking, well, you know, what if I get blamed for something I didn't do? How can I take responsibility for that? So the idea is then take responsibility for whatever it is that you were responsible for. Maybe you did do part of it, but you didn't do the other part. So say, you're right, I didn't do that, and I'm sorry. You don't have to take full responsibility if you are innocent for part of it, but at least be responsible for the part that you played. And generally there is always a part, or we wouldn't be criticized to begin with. Okay, so behavior 4. So this is called stonewalling. And it kind of is what it sounds like if you picture a wall made out of stone between you and somebody else. You just can't get through. So basically what happens is when a conversation is going on and there's criticism and there's defensiveness and things are escalating, somebody, it's usually one person, they get what we call escalated or flooded. And flooded is when they cannot physiologically handle their partner's negativity anymore. Actually, a lot of times both people get flooded at the same time, and that's when things really go ballistic. But like the pulse quickens, the heart rate quickens, the body secretes adrenaline, and the blood pressure increases, and you just can't think clearly anymore. And when that happens, you shut down, and that's called stonewalling. So there's flooding, and flooding is the precursor to stonewalling. And when stonewalling occurs, basically the person, although they're physically present, they've emotionally checked out. They've withdrawn and they shut down, and they've basically created a wall. And sometimes you can tell when someone is stonewalling by the fact that they're not looking at you anymore. They're looking down at the floor. They're looking away at a wall. They're looking out the window, but they're not looking at you. Sometimes it's so bad they actually turn their back, or their back is turned. You're talking to them and they don't turn towards you. It means they can't handle this conversation. They're not capable of responding. So what we recommend when that happens, when somebody feels flooding happening, or somebody knows, you know, you're stonewalling me, the antidote is called to take a break. You basically literally take a break. You stop the discussion, and you do something totally different that calms you and distracts you from this intense conversation. Now, sometimes people are flooded, and you know, it doesn't mean there's people are going to be yelling and throwing pans across the room. Flooding and like, I just watched I have a couple that I'm working with, and they were having a very difficult conversation, and they got flooded, especially one of them. And you know, like, the outsider wouldn't know that. I don't even think they realized it at first. But I pointed it out, and she was like, oh my God, I'm so flooded. And so then we took the necessary measures. So somebody has to be aware enough to say, you know what, I can't have this conversation, or I see that you're flooded, or I see that you're not present before me anymore, and I've upset you, or this is an upsetting conversation. So why don't we take a break? So the prescription is no less than 20 minutes and no longer than 24 hours. And you both agree when you're going to come back. So let's meet back in an hour. Let's wait till this evening. Let's wait till tomorrow morning. And in the meantime, separate. So go take a walk, go read, go run around the block, go lie in shavasana, do some yoga, chant some japa, make a smoothie, you know, whatever it is that kind of distracts you and just brings you right back down to normalness. Do that. And then again, come back and try again. So I'm going to give you a little exercise to do, okay? So if you're with your partner, you can do it. And if you're on your own, you can do it on your own. So I'll say it as if you're together, but you can adjust it to yourself. So if you're together, discuss with your partner which one of these destructive behaviors you do the most. How does it make you feel? How does it make your partner feel? How does it impact your relationship? And what are some actions you can take to improve? I know that's a lot. I'll repeat it. So if you're on your own, you just do it for yourself. What destructive behaviors are you doing the most right now? If you're not in a relationship, then just think about a past relationship. What did you do? Or if you've never been in a relationship, then think about, with a sibling or a mother or a father or a friend or someone you've worked with. What is the destructive behavior that you do the most? How does it make you feel? How does it make the other person feel? How does it or did it impact your relationship? And what are some things you can think of that could help you improve that? So I'm going to give everyone just 5 minutes on your own there to either write that down or have that discussion. Thanks for writing that in there, Anuradha. Okay, so who needs more time, or most people ready? I want people to share now. So how about this? If you're ready, you can unmute yourself, or however you do it, raise your hand, unmute yourself, and share with us. We'd love a few shares. So does anybody want to share? Or they're still working? Should I call on somebody?
I can start, Mataji, I don't mind.
Okay, awesome. Tell us.
Okay, so for me, I'm at a stage where I'm stonewalling, and thank you for the term. It's the first time I hear it. And I'm just like completely shut down because it's the only way I know how to protect myself. To, not look at this shouting person, to look away, to walk away, to, to shut down. Because if I connect to that energy, to his Maya, let's say, shouting, I will feel like responding. So for me, stonewalling is what I am practicing now, to just completely shut down and not connect to that energy in order to not respond, because the response becomes explosive.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
So, and we have a 2-year-old that is, if I respond and we start arguing, the child is looking, and she's turning 3, and I'm starting to see how that is affecting her, because when she's playing around, she's screaming and shouting at her dolls. And I've said to my partner many times that we should avoid this, you should avoid it, but he doesn't seem to understand the impact of his negative energy. So that's I have also a question, and so, in the defensiveness of things.
So I think what we're going to do is save your question for the end.
Okay.
Because I want to give a few other people the chance and then see how they would, turn it around. But your situation is a little extreme, so you may not have that solution right now. But I take your question later. And I
Okay.
thank you very much for sharing that. Really
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi.
Hare Krishna Mataji, nice
Hare
to
Krishna.
see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some home help, and because of my age and my comorbidity, I tend to get tired trying to explain the same instructions over and over again, and I have this OCD problem. So when they don't do the job properly, not every day, but despite telling them, despite training them, they don't do it, then some days when you're very tired, I tend to criticize, and I think I did hurt her feelings, and I was also miserable, she was also miserable, and but I think because she needs the job and I need her, we're just tolerating each other. But she does love me because she knows I'm very kind, and I do help her. And many a time I have thought that I should be more patient and understanding, and to know and realize where they come from. They don't come from a background where they are trained to think this way. They are just trained to do something as per their understanding. And so that's
Okay.
the behavior I have to adopt.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, one more person. Would love to hear what you, yeah, one more person.
Haribol,
Haribo.
Haribol, please can I say something?
Yes.
So I think
An example of what I'm asking, or is this a comment or question that could be probably done later?
no, it's an example of what you're asking.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think a behavior of mine is when we get into arguments, even though I hate it and I get annoyed with myself for doing it, I end up using bad words because I get so frustrated. So that's one of the things that I think for me is something I know that I do, and it makes me feel really bad afterwards, but I just don't know. Anger, I think, probably gets the worst of me. So yeah, thank you.
That's really good. Thank you so much for sharing that. So anger is an issue for you, and then using the bad words exacerbates that.
Yes.
So one thing you could try is using kinder, better words and see how that might change your actual mood.
Yes, thank you. I think it's sometimes out of frustration because after having had the same conversation maybe 5, 10, 15 times, I think
Right.
I need to be more patient.
Right. So if you're having, that's a good point, Selena. Your name is Selena. So
yes,
the point is when you're having the same kind of conversation and about the same topic and it's not getting resolved. So there's two kinds of issues in marriages or problems. There's perpetual problems and there's solvable problems. Now, solvable problems can still be painful, but generally they're more about a situation or an event. You know, they're situational. So they can usually be solved, but there has to be skill and kindness when you're having the conversation. So it may be a solvable problem. However, if it's the same one that keeps coming up and it really, really gets you going, like you're saying it, you even use bad language, that could be a perpetual problem. And 71% of all problems in marriages are actually perpetual. They don't get solved. But in emotionally intelligent couples know how to navigate their way through those kinds of conversations, and they know how to work out the differences even though they may not ever see eye to eye and agree on them. They don't let it interrupt and get in the way of having a good relationship. That's something I work on with my difference, giving them skills how to not have gridlock. You know, we call it gridlock, where it's just like butting heads, so to speak. So, you know, if you're interested, you come to me. We can have some sessions about that. But I get it. It's very common. And see what you can do. You know, first start with language, because language affects how we think. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So great. Okay, thank you all so much for sharing your examples. And now I'm ready. I went through that really quick because the last time we did it was with my husband. So it was like 2 people. So we did quick. We're doing good. Okay. So I'm ready to take questions, anything to do with this, or if you have other questions that you think everybody might benefit from in terms of marriage, I could potentially take those too. So are there any questions?
In the chat, there are some questions. I don't know if the people who write it, you want to read it, or the people who write that they can say it? Or I can read it for you if you want.
I'm seeing the chat here.
Is Divya Triste has a question.
Yeah, hang on. I don't want to answer that now because that's not something to do about marriage. It's about someone who wants to get married and kind of wants to know how to get married, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay.
This is more focused on relationships and making relationships better. So I apologize to Divya Dristi, but that's like totally different. Yeah. And I'm sorry you're feeling that way. But if there's no other questions, I can take it. But let's see, I really would rather answer questions based on the content of the presentation. And let's see if anybody who hasn't said anything yet.
There is one question from Gabriela Delgado at the end of the chat.
Okay, let me see that one. Okay, how to prevent a person from normalizing the attitude of complaining, and that leads to developing a constant childish attitude instead of taking responsibility. For example, when a child complains to his father or mother when they are not pleased with what he wants to do. This happens to many of my patients who complain constantly because the couple does not do what they want and continue to wait for the other person to change. How to prevent a person from normalizing the attitude of complaining that leads to developing constant childish attitude. Okay, so you're saying that the person complains to you and you feel like it's a childish attitude and they've normalized it. So then what you can do is ask them, what is it that you really want from me? Or what is it that you really need? I hear there's a longing behind your complaint. Tell me what it is that you really want. So the desires are cased in language that doesn't necessarily convey the real need and desire. And that language can hit the listener in the wrong way. And it just, I don't get it. I'm not a mind reader. Like I tell my couples, like sometimes I think especially women, we expect the men to know like all our whims and desires and, emotions but men, and nobody's a mind reader. So the more we can be very clear and straightforward with our partner, the more likely we'll get our needs met. So tell them, and you can say it nicely, if you're going to say, you're so childish, don't be such a child and a complainer, then that's going to add fuel to the fire. But if you say, I really want to help you, I really want to make you happy, I really want to make your need met. Tell me, what is it that you really want? So sometimes we have to, I don't know if everybody knows who Sherlock Holmes is, but he was like a TV guy, like a detective. I think like the best famous TV, it was even before my time, but I always grew up hearing Sherlock Holmes. So I think he was a TV series detective. And I think he was super good and super famous, and there was no mystery that he could not solve. So sometimes we have to be like detectives with our partners and get a little more information, look for more clues and find out more. If we think what they want is just what they say, and especially if it comes out negatively, it's not. Like even anger, like this other lady was saying, I think her name was Bhakti was saying that, anger is just an expression of some other emotion that we're holding down, fear or anxiety or, hurtness or so many things. It's a secondary emotion, anger. It's not primary. So we have to find out, what it is. But the hard part about being Sherlock Holmes is we have to do it in a way that doesn't anger or alienate or make the situation worse. We have to do it with a lot of calmness and patience and kindness. So that would be my answer. Okay, here's another one. Here's lots. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to take all of them, but the ones that I think have the most substance or can address many points at one time. Does Varna play a role in difficult marriages? Someone may be one Varna and the other is a different Varna, so they think, talk, feel differently. How do we balance this? That is a good question, and it's very true that, a passionate Vaishya or a less educated Sudra is going to be speaking way different than like a, mode of goodness Brahmin or passionate Kshatriya, I should say. Kshatriyas are really the passionate ones. But so it does play a role. But the interesting thing about relationships is that, or about marriages, I should say, is that when couples take the time to really know each other, to find out more about that person and why they do the things they do, like what makes you tick, like why do you have an obsession with that, or why are you afraid of that? These are what we call having open-ended questions. So like, tell me more about that. Tell me the story behind that. What makes that so important to you? What's behind that? Does that come from your childhood? So you're finding out what we call enduring vulnerabilities. Another way to say enduring vulnerability is a flaw, right? So someone may have this really annoying aspect to their personality, but it comes from somewhere. There's a meaning behind it. There's a story behind it. And when you take the time to hold space for that person to be able to share with you the pain behind that, or the triumph behind that, or why it is, you begin to see that flaw or that situation in a very different way. And they feel that you've understood them to such a degree that they don't even have to do it as much as they did it before. So when there's this kind of situation where you feel like, well, our natures are different, you can overcome all that if you put the time and energy into learning about the other person and taking time to let them know you care and holding space to listen to the pain or to the reason. Like, it doesn't have to be a painful reason. It could just be like someone's, their background was from a really messy background, right? Like there was chaos in their home and It just wasn't clean and neat and organized. So for them, neatness and organization, having dinner at the same time every day and making sure the children are bathed at every time and getting up at the same time, and all that is really important to them. It's become a value. It's become a principle to live by because they didn't have it. So it makes them feel organized and neat and clean, and it makes them feel whole and complete. Whereas maybe somebody who came from a background where their mother just like put sheets on all the sofas and put plastic on the floor, and they, as soon as they sat down, they're like, don't sit there, I haven't puffed the pillow yet, or don't go. For them, that's the least thing they want. When they come home, they just want to relax and let their stuff go on the floor. And so maybe for you, it's like, why do you do that? But when you find out that, you know, they had like trauma as a child because it was too much. So for them, they're an adult now. This is their home, their oasis. But they will clean up, you know, let them have that 30 minutes when they first come home to just let it all hang out and put their feet up. Or another example could be someone who comes from a really nice background, and so they want their home now as an adult and their relationship with their partner to emulate that because it was so valuable to them, so meaningful. They have such warm and fuzzy feelings around that, you know. So when you find out the background behind the stories of why people do what they do, say what they say, think what they think, and you're there for them, and not only do you listen, but you let them know you understand. Like, you could say things like, well, that makes sense to me. Well, I can understand why you would feel that way because A, B, C, and D. Or, yeah, you know, I understand that. I get that. Yeah, I totally get that. Now I understand why you are that way, and I'm okay. I respect that, or whatever. The whole dynamic of what you're talking about with, you know, the way you relate to each other, think, feel, and talk and act are different because they're always going to be different. I mean, in Kali Yuga, how many perfect Brahmin couples are there, or Sudra couples, or Vaishya couples, or this or that? It's very rare. And even if they are so-called perfect, they still come from different backgrounds. They still come from different worldviews. So there's always going to be tension. So yes, to a certain degree, that will be there. But A, you can overcome it, and B, you can tolerate it more. You can tolerate it more when you understand the story behind it. Okay? So how should we deal with someone who is often has a victim mentality? For instance, they're always saying Enam. What does Enam mean? Sarnia. Okay, I'll come back to that. Sometimes during disagreements with my husband, I can get quite emotional due to being oversensitive, which leads to my husband feeling guilty, although that's not my intention. How could I navigate my part in disagreements without getting too emotional? Okay, great question. So one part to that is to make sure that you have the conversation when you're not in an emotional state. So, you know, pick a time where things are relaxed and calm. You're not going to get a phone call. The children aren't going to walk in. You know, you have your greatest chance of staying calm. If you start to feel yourself getting emotional, then that would be what we would say is flooded. So then you can say to your husband, I'm feeling really flooded right now. Can I have a timeout? Can I just take a, you know, if it's not actually flooded, but it's just emotional due to your nature, then say, I need 5 minutes. So you can close your eyes and you can take some deep breaths. You can lie on your back and just relax. You can, inhale, exhale, tighten all the muscles in your body and then release them. You can do little yogic practices to let the emotion go. You can talk to your husband about why you're emotional. See, there's a story behind that. There's a reason that you think, or he thinks, or you both think that you're super emotional, right? more than him, or maybe more than other people. What's the story behind that? So you guys need to sit down and ask your husband to ask you, so tell me more about why you get so emotional. And all his job is to do is to listen to you. He's not going to comment. He's not going to fix, it's not a problem, so he's not going to try and fix it. He's not going to give his opinion. He's just there to listen and be present and feel you. So if there's pain, he'll feel your pain. If there's joy, he'll feel your joy. And then he can speak with validating words like, oh, so you're feeling that way because A, B, C, and D. And then he can take it a step further and just say, yeah, I can understand. I would feel that way too. That makes sense to me. So you can ask him if he would be willing to sit down with you and hold a safe space where you can be vulnerable, and ask you to share with you why you get so emotional. I was saying, I'm sorry when it's not really appropriate and sees my action of the other person as intentionally vindictive when I'm not really sure exactly that question, so I'm going to go to another one. What do you do if you and your partner have very different backgrounds / mindsets? Okay, good question. So that does happen, and it can be a problem. But the way to manage it, so like I told you, there's perpetual problems and there's solvable problems. Now, generally, background differences and maybe, mindset differences could be more put in the category of a perpetual problem. It's not going to go away. Your background is your background. That's not going to change. Your mindset is your mindset. You can adjust it, but it's not necessarily just going to completely vanish. So again, the way to manage that is by learning about the other person's background and mindset and finding things in it to appreciate. So like, let's say, you come from Russia. So you might, and he comes from, I'm making this stuff up. I don't even know who you are. So you come from Russia. He comes from South Africa. I don't know. And you're very Russian. He's very South African. So, it's an opportunity for you to learn about the wonderful things about his culture. And it's an opportunity for him to learn about the wonderful things about your culture. And as far as mindset, he just has to accept that you're Russian, and you have to accept that he's South African. But here's the thing. In happy marriages, couples allow themselves to be influenced by the other person. So you could be like, well, she's Russian. Or you could be like, yeah, she's Russian. And did you know that Russians are this and that, the other? They may not be so this, but they're that. So you're willing to be influenced in a positive way by her mindset. And she's willing to be influenced in a positive way by your mindset. So again, it's understanding the person, who they are, why they are that way, allowing to be influenced and just being tolerated and focusing on the positive, focusing on yeah, she's Russian, but I'm not going to focus on that because, or maybe, okay, that aspect of Russians I don't like, but there's so many other things about Russians I like. Or, okay, so she's a little messy, but she's such a good cook. So I'm going to focus on the cooking, and I'm going to tell her all the time how much I love her cooking. And I'm not going to bother criticizing the messiness because that's just how she is. So sometimes we think we can change people, or we wish they would change. That's another big mistake we make. We think that they're the ones who have the problem and they need to change. But the best thing is to not focus on the problem, focus on the positive things, and celebrate unity and diversity. You have to celebrate the diversity because that's where you guys are at. That's who you're with. So celebrate it and appreciate it and find things to appreciate. What do you do when you try to explain your feelings about things, but your spouse labels whatever you're trying to express as just excuses? Okay, that's a good one. So I guess you can begin by asking them, why do you think it's an excuse? You know, what makes you say that? See, it's like a way for that person to shut you down. And they obviously don't want to have a deeper conversation about it. But the only way to really sort of go deeper and peel off these layers of bad patterns of behavior and language is by going deeper. But it's not working the way it's working. So you got to try something different. So, you know, instead of denying, no, it's not an excuse, just ask him why, what makes you think that's an excuse? And then try and have a genuine dialogue about it. Now, some people deal with, there's something called meta emotions. And meta emotions means how we feel about our emotions, and particularly about negative emotions. So some people have the mindset in the world that, you know, when I'm having a bad feeling, when I feel bad about something, the way to deal with it is by processing it. I talk about it with somebody else and I work through it. Some people feel like the way I deal with negative emotions in my life is I hold it in, but I work through it on my own. You know, I don't go outside with it. I stay inside with it, but I do the work. And then other people deal with their negative emotions by, we could say, you know, slipping it under the rug or hiding it, holding it in, but not dealing with it, or letting it out, but in a very volatile way. And every human being has a different meta emotions style. But just because someone has a style, particularly this style where they don't like to process it, whether it's external or internally, it doesn't mean they can't do it, but they need somebody to support them and help them through it. So to that person, your job is to help that person, help them figure out why, or, you know, don't say, I need to help you figure out why you have this problem. I'm not saying he has that problem, but I would just start with a basic question to open up the space for deeper dialogue on why he likes to think that you have that excuse, and take it from there. I hope that was helpful. My partner doesn't care about my feelings. He always wants me to listen about his problems or his interests. I am not interested in listening about these things now, as he never asks anything about me. If I tell him my issues with him, he simply says, I cannot do anything. This is the way I am. All right, good. So there's two questions here as far as I can tell. So I'm going to address them individually. So the first question is how to get somebody who always talks about themselves and their problems and their interests to be more attentive and in tune to your interests and, to your your feelings and problems. So this would be where a gentle startup would be really handy. So let's say the person's going on and on, or they finished, or you're expecting them to start talking about themselves. So this would be a good time for you to say something like, I was thinking that tonight I could spend a little time talking about myself, as I have some things I'd really like to share. And I feel like, I just need to get these things off my chest. Or something happened and I really need somebody to listen to me, or we've heard a lot about your day, but I'd really like a chance or a turn to talk about how my day went. You know, this happens sometimes in relationships where one of the people, it's usually the wife, stays home all day and she's just at home alone or with the children. And then the husband's been out in the workplace having meetings and exchanges and working with different people and having lots of conversations all day long. And then he comes home. And so the wife, she just wants to talk because she hasn't been able to talk to anybody all day or only children. She just wants to go, blah, 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 you know, my day. Blah, blah. And he's like so done with talking, right? He just wants to sit and read or watch YouTube or whatever. I don't know. So this could turn into a really big scene if you think about it. Like he comes home and whatever, maybe right when he walks in the door, they have dinner and then and he's like, I don't want to talk, you know, leave me alone. Or he locks the door and he just wants to read. And then she's like, let me in. What's wrong with you? Why don't you want to talk to me? And then she feels emotionally isolated, that he's not interested. And he's just like, oh my God, why won't she get off my back? I don't want to listen to her. I had a long day. So that's when really good communication and this idea of respect and being influenced comes in. So let's say that scenario comes in, and so she wants to talk and he doesn't want to. So she could say in a gentle startup way, I know you've had a really long day and you're probably really sick of talking to people. I was wondering, after dinner and after you've had a little shower and read or finished your rounds, would it be okay if we talked a little bit? Because I just feel like I need to just talk to an adult for a little while. So if she said it like that, I mean, who would be like, no? Chances are he'd be like, sure. And then they'll set the time. Okay, so what, like 8 o'clock? Or in an hour from now? And he'll be like, yeah. Or vice versa. He comes home and he sees that she's really in need of talking. He might just say to her, look, I can see you're really eager to talk to me. I have a splitting headache right now. I had a really bad day, but I want to honor your need to talk. And I want to know what you have to say. So can you give me an hour? Let me have a shower. Let me have prashada. Let me just lie down, you know, take my medicine. And then I'd love to hear about your day. So it's more about we than me. And as couples, our job is to think less about ourselves and more about our partner. We should be thinking not only are my needs important, but his or her needs are important. And the only way we can start to get in that cycle is by speaking very kindly, you know, by using these gentle startups, avoiding criticism, avoiding contempt, avoiding defensiveness, and managing and taking responsibility if you're feeling flooded and stonewalled. Anuradha, how much time do we go for?
It's 1 hour 47, but no, I mean, it's 1 hour like 20 minutes. I don't know if, because we start 30 minutes later.
Okay, so we still have time.
Yeah.
Okay, because a lot more questions are coming in. My husband says that he keeps playing games or watching TV so that he does not have to talk to me. I'm not sure what to do. Sometimes I feel lonely. Thank you. Okay, so this would be another opportunity for you to approach your husband and say to him, you know, I know that you like to watch TV and play games, and I understand that, but I'm feeling really neglected and it's making me feel lonely, and I would really like to spend some quality time together. Now, the thing is, when you're together, what is the time like? Is it enjoyable? Is it uplifting? Is it inspiring? Or is it negative? Are you having little spats and fights? Because if it is, then yeah, he's going to want to do that. But if he knows that it's going to be something that you both enjoy, or something that you're going to have good conversation, or, you know, you watch a good TV show together, hopefully Krishna conscious, then he might be more likely to be willing to, you know, do less of that, and let him know, you know, I'm lonely. I'm feeling lonely. That is a red flag, because that's how it all begins. You know, that the demise of a relationship starts when somebody's feeling emotionally isolated and lonely. So you need to tell your husband. Now, if that doesn't work, then you need to get counseling. You know, I recommend counseling. I heartily recommend counseling, because I feel like so many of people's problems are actually smaller than they think, but they just don't know how to have good communication with each other, meaningful communication. They don't know how to practice it. And when I teach them the skills, everything turns around quickly. But when someone's not willing to open up and feel the other person's loneliness, then, and the person who's lonely doesn't know how to get them to do that, then that's the time for counseling. But try first by being vulnerable and expressing your wishes and your needs in a respectful way. Don't say what you don't need. Here's another mistake people make. They say what they don't need instead of what they do need. So you might say, you know, I'm lonely and I want to spend more time with you. Or you might say, let's see, I'm lonely, I want to be together, and I don't want you to do that, and I don't want you to do that, and I don't want you to do that. So that's a lot of negative energy. But you could say, I'm feeling lonely and sad, and I really want to spend time with you, and I would love it if you could, or we could, or I could. So you say the positive, not the negative. And if it doesn't work, then get counseling. If I'm still no longer trying the silent treatment, maybe it's cold-hearted. Stonewalling is justified because it's the person's way of saying they can't deal with this. It's not pleasant, you're right. And it feels cold-hearted and it feels mean, and it is. But it's their way of saying, I just can't deal with this conversation. I can't deal with how you're talking to me. I can't deal with it. So the way to avoid the stonewalling is by starting the conversation off better to begin with. Like I mentioned earlier, Dr. Gottman could predict within the first 3 minutes of a conversation how the rest of the conversation would go and what the result would be. So if you're starting out criticizing or getting defensive or being flooded, then stonewalling will follow. But if you can start out with a gentle, soft startup, then it's likely it won't. Now, you know, if there are couples here that have been married for a long time and they're having a lot of difficulties, you can try these things and they'll work to some degree, but they may not resolve all your problems. And that's where I would recommend marriage counseling. Okay. Please, how can we contact you? How can we contact you, Majidi, for asking advice? So I don't generally just give lots of advice. I do counseling because I'm so busy with my home life and my family and my service, and then the couples that I work with as clients. And generally advice, you know, a little bit of advice here and there is good, but regular counseling is what really transforms marriages. So like I said, this is the appetizer and the counseling is like, you know, the full course. But you're welcome to contact me if you're interested in counseling. And you can write me for that. My email address, and Anuradha will put it, do you know it, Anuradha? Okay, she'll put it in the chat section. Because if I just gave advice, that's all I would be doing all day long. But I found that. I used to counsel couples. They'd come and then they'd take a few weeks off and then they'd have a problem. And I found like it wasn't that effective But if they come every week for a certain period of time, then things happen quickly. Things really change. And then eventually they don't even need me anymore. So that's how I work. I want to see rapid transformation, not these slow little tries, but then you forget, and then too much time goes by, and then you forgot how to do it, and then this and that and the other. If he refuses, then you can call me about it. So you call me. If you want to do counseling and your partner is refusing, you can call me, and I'll put can you put my number in there? You probably don't know it, do you? My WhatsApp number? I'll tell it to you.
I have one, but I'm not sure it is the one you have now.
It's +1.
Yes.
352.
3.
213. 1601. Yeah, only if that's the situation, I would be happy to speak with you to help you about how to get him on board. That's more than we could tackle here.
Shamanta?
Yes, you have a question.
Yes, I have a question. How does one handle a constant kind of saying someone, your partner telling you you're controlling, oh, you're so controlling, oh, you like to control things. Whenever I try to say, let's do this is the right way of doing this, or, just to give to make our lives better, to add some, and the response I get, oh, you like to control. So how do I get?
Well, you could ask him, how would you like me to be? If you think I'm controlling, do you want me to suggest these things, or how would you like me to be? Find out what is it behind, because he's saying more than that. Like, he's saying that, but there's other things going on. So you need to find out what he's really saying and what his real issues and concerns and blockages are, and then take it from there. It's just a statement, but it's not really what he's truly saying. So find that out first, and the way to find that out is just, respectfully asking him, giving him the space, even if it's not what you want to hear, but giving him the space to speak his mind and what it is that he's really saying. Okay. So Anuradha, they said, please give the email address. Did you put it in there yet?
Not yet. I'm looking it for. Sorry.
I'll give it to you. It's my name, Jahnava Devi. Just make sure you spell Jahnava right.
Yes.
108 @gmail.com. So, there are a few more questions, but I could go on, or we could end here. I'm not sure which to do. Okay, so getting married for the wrong reasons ends the marriage sooner or later. How does one avoid this catastrophe? Well, I don't know that necessarily the wrong reasons to get married. They may not be the best reasons. They may not be the perfect reasons. There may be less than perfect circumstances why people get married. But I feel like, there's always possibility and hope and potential if the couple is willing to work at it. So that's what I would say. It takes work. Good relationships take work. Money doesn't fall from a tree. You have to go out and earn it. And good relationships, generally speaking, don't just They might start out good, but they don't stay good unless you put the time and the effort into it. So, you know, anything good is worth fighting for. So I feel like you have to put the effort in, and then it will be worth fighting for. And if you put all the effort in and it still doesn't get better, then, you know, then you have to consider breaking up. But I always consider that to be the last option. Yeah, I was sorry, Dia, you asked a couple of questions, but I just, are you still there? Could you speak live? Because I don't quite understand them completely. Maybe she's gone. I guess she's gone. She asked 2 questions, but can't quite get them. So, all right. I think we're going to end here. I think it's been good. And yeah, I'll have to talk to you later about that hymn. I think if I summarize them, it won't make any sense. The 7 principles. I did say it, but it's too much to explain today. But there is a book, so I can recommend the book. So it's 7 Principles to Making Marriage Work. I have a copy here somewhere. And it's by Dr. John Gottman. And, you know, you'll have to Krishnaize a little bit. There are things that may not be totally, can you see it in the, I'm not saying everything in it you should practice as a devotee, but a lot of it, you know, the principles are going to get you where you would like to go in having a much deeper, loving, caring, close, intimate connection with your partner, and not feeling all those other feelings that many of you feel, which is why you're here today, perhaps. Or if you're not, to avoid that from happening when you finally do get into your relationship. All right, so thank you all so much. It was really great being with you, and thanks. I hope you enjoyed this. And I'm going to do more classes, but like if anybody here is interested in counseling, please contact me. I have a lot of knowledge and skills and tips coming in disciplic succession from the Gottman Institute, plus all my years in Krishna consciousness, and you know, and all my own mistakes that I've made that I would love to be of service to you and help you. So yeah, so thank you all very, very much. We'll let you know when I do the next one, and thanks for tolerating the late start and the changing of the link and all that stuff.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was a super wonderful class. Thank you.
Aww.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hi, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mataji.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for your very generous.